Welcome back to Energy First with Sarah and Jen. I am Jennifer McIntyre.
Sarah Phillips,
and we've got a super special episode. Sarah's really been looking forward to this one. So have I. I will be also very glad when it's done, so I don't have to listen to my oilfield wife anymore talk about it. It'll be wonderful. So just to go over the mission of Energy First yet again for everybody, we concentrate on educational subjects. So that's both education that can lead to careers in the industry, as well as raising awareness itself about our industry. We discuss legislation. So that's either legislation that is currently in effect that's affecting our industry, or is being proposed or pending that is going to affect our industry. And then most importantly, and that's going to lead into this first episode with this very special individual, we like to talk about the people that actually make this industry what it is. Because without those people, none of us would be sitting at this table, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And then just to go over our sponsors, Deep Well Services, obviously, are huge supporters of ours. Women's Energy Network, Pittsburgh chapter, are huge supporters, and Mikuso's Services are also a platinum sponsor right now. So thank you guys so much for your support. We are always looking for more sponsors. Just get in touch. And then our schedule is booked up, I think, to like the end of August, beginning of September, maybe a little bit further out. But we are always looking for speakers that have a message that want to get out here.
We have some really great ones coming up.
Yeah,
Not as good as Toby, but almost.
Yeah, and we are 99% of the way towards securing our completions episode. It's with legal with one of our operators, and then I had a conversation with another operator yesterday, and I think we did get the final approval to go onto their drilling location to talk to those guys out there, which will be super exciting. So really looking forward to that. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she's going to introduce our very special guest.
So we have Toby Rice. He is EQT's CEO, and EQT, if they were their own country, would be the 12th most natural gas producing country in the world, right?
That's right. I think we just passed like Yugoslavia or something like that.
Oh,
That's
wow.
crazy.
I just know the number. It's the 12th largest producing country.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's absolutely crazy. So, Toby, tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, a little bit about your background.
Yeah, proud energy worker. Start with that, and I think what we're doing is incredibly important. I think especially today it's super relevant. Everybody's talking about energy because what we do supports modern society and all the benefits that come along with it. I got started. A lot of people are surprised to learn that we did not grow up on a drilling rig. I didn't know anything about the oil and gas business growing up. I grew up in Massachusetts, South Shore. And out of the 38 states that produce oil and gas, Massachusetts is not one of them. So the only thing we knew about the oil and gas industry was the price we paid at the pump. Mm-hmm. But we were big into sports, and that's what the brothers focused on. And when I got done with college with a chemistry degree, I thought I was going to get drafted. And when draft day came, I didn't get drafted. I was absolutely shocked. None of my friends and family were shocked, and I had to figure out what's next and what am I going to do with my life. So,
you were pretty good though, right? Aren't you in the College World Series? You were in the College World Series. You're in the Hall of Fame, right? The Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
For getting hit.
Yeah, I mean
the most pitches.
This sort of sums up my baseball career. When I was getting inducted into the Rollins College Hall of Fame, the guys in front of me, they were like, this guy that's coming in, he was a pitcher. He had the best ERA, most strikeouts. Another guy, this guy was outfielder, set the record for the most home runs. I said, and here's Toby. He set the record for the most hit by pitches, the hardest to strike out. And I was like, these aren't even real stats. But the reason why we were there is because we were I think ranked 44th preseason, and we ended up going to the College World Series. So it was like a Cinderella story.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I think it's leading teams and getting the most out of people. Mm-hmm. That was sort of the lesson learned during the most important lesson is it's about the team, not the individual. So that was good to pick that up and get validation that like hard work pays off and teamwork matters.
And everything happens for a reason, Toby. You weren't meant to be drafted, right?
Well,
Otherwise, this wouldn't be here.
Well, I played in I played in a pro baseball game. I tell people I'm a pro baseball player now. So when I got, and I'll tell you this, the story real quick, but when I didn't get drafted, I went back to Boston and got, a job. The job I was doing, I was a chimney sweep. And that was the first job I did that was on the Dirty Job show. I've done a few. I got a call, and it was from the pro baseball teams. They said, "Hey, Toby, do you want to come and play pro ball?" And it was actually, we have the Washington Wild Things here. It's an independent league. It was one of the teams that plays on that circuit, and
they're wicked. I mean, even compared to like the full-on pros, they're wicked.
Yeah, those guys are great,
Yeah.
and everybody should go check them out. Great team. It's a really fun time. But the guy called me and said, "Toby, you want to play pro ball?" And I said, "Yeah. What can you tell me a little bit about it?" I would have done anything that wasn't chimney sweeping, so it didn't have to be that compelling. But he said, "Yeah, we'll pay $600 to play 6 games a week." And I said, "Man, $600 a game for 6 games a week? That's like $3,600 a week to play baseball. Like, I'm in. Sign me up." He says, "No, $600 a month." And so at that point in time, I was looking at some other options, and I just had a really close call. I got in a fight with a raccoon on the roof and almost fell off the roof.
Really?
Well, listen, the chimney sweep game is not, it's actually a pretty risky business. And the biggest cause for chimney sweeps coming out is animals.
Oh, coming out of the chimney?
Yeah, and so there was the chimney flue was about the size of this water ball, and out came like a raccoon the size of a bear. It was like a magic trick.
Yeah, those things, they're vicious. They sound scary.
Well, so I almost had that near-death experience, and that's when I realized, like, maybe chimney sweeping isn't the best thing for me. Maybe I'm not realizing my full potential doing this. So I broke down and went and talked to my dad. I said, "Hey, Dad, can you, like, help guide me a little bit?" And he talked to me. He said, "Well, what about doing the gas industry?" And I had knew nothing about it. And after a 10-minute conversation, it was really clear. It was risky. It was incredibly competitive, and it was like, to me, it was like modern day treasure hunting. And I said, "That's it. That's what I want to do." So he set me on a path. He said, "Well, because of your chemistry degree, you should be a petroleum engineer. Go down to Texas A&M, study hydraulic fracturing and unconventional reservoirs." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." I have no clue what those things are. But classes didn't start for about 6 months. So the decision was either do this pro baseball thing or go down to Texas and try and hustle a job on a rig. Mm-hmm. And so I picked that. And so I went
What
down.
operator did you work for? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was Key Energy Services.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so John Daniels was able to get me a job down there, and I broke out in West Texas. So, I mean, my first job in this industry
what
was...
a place to break out.
Yeah.
Like, of all the places you could pick.
Especially back
West
then.
Texas, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I've never even seen a rig. I've never even seen a well. Now, all of a sudden, I'm out there, slinging pipe. And we were doing rod repairs out there, and then in East Texas, then with East Texas, we did a lot of tubing poles. Mm-hmm. But it was so I did that for 6 months, and that was really important for my career, I think, because what I learned there was we had, the camaraderie. I think the main takeaway is you can have the best team in the field, but if executives are putting them in areas that suck, doesn't matter how good the people in the field are. The executives need to put you in the right place. And then also, even if the executives put you in a great place, you need to have a great team out there in the field to create value, because, bad teams can destroy value. So
absolutely,
it was really, I was able to see, how important both of those things were going through that. But then after that experience, I went to Texas A&M and got my master's degree, or almost got my master's degree, and that was a challenge because petroleum engineering, I knew nothing about that, and I remember thinking, this is like, I didn't even know why is pressure important? It's like trying to be a carpenter and not knowing what a hammer is.
Yeah.
I was really fish out of water there, but I studied pretty intense, and so I would sleep every other night, and that was my schedule, and I would just read as much as I could. And I figured out what hydraulic fracturing was. I figured out what unconventional reservoirs were, and I was able to hustle to get an internship, and was able to convince the manager to pump some new frac technology.
Wow.
And it increased production, 15%.
So what was that technology?
That was ultimately dubbed the Z-frac, which is a name I just made up. But it was a reverse hybrid frac job. So you know a typical hybrid frac job, you pump slick water, then you pump the gel. This was one where you flipped it, and it did some weird things, like you'd have viscous fingering. Anyways, it was a different way to put proppant. And so this is probably 2005, 2006.
Wow, early.
Yeah, and a lot of people were still trying to figure out hydraulic fracturing. So when I came back to school, I got a call from the guys that said, "Oh, the production was good." I said, "Well, maybe that was the first time the light bulb went on for me. Technology is the key to differentiated results." And so...
And where did you discover that technology? Was it in that research that you were doing all those nights?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is out there in the SPE. So just putting a lot of the pieces together. So what I thought was, well, I've been doing this for a year. I must be an expert. So I started my first consulting company, which looking back probably was a little bit aggressive. But this company was designed to exploit technology in hydraulic fracturing. And what we did, or what I did, it was only me, was understand all the frac technologies, understand where they work, why they work, and then go to operators and say, if you're in this area or drilling this type of formation, this is the right technology for you. I would help them implement that. And what we were able to see is just the application of the right technology was the key to differentiated results. And so we had sort of shown a track record of increasing production just from changing the technology, and that was sort of the path that I was on. And I got a call one day from my dad. He said, "Hey, Tobe, you've sort of you've got an edge here. How are you going to play this?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to keep hustling for this day rate as a company man. What else can I do?" And he says, "Well, Tobe, I've always wanted to start an oil and gas company, but I was waiting to get an edge before doing that, and I've got $10 million, and I want to start an oil and gas company with you." And I said, "What?"
Why did you not tell me this?
He says, "Yeah, can you believe it? I want to start an oil and gas company with you." I said, "No, I can't believe that you have $10 million. Like, where did this come from? All these like swag gifts that he would just pass along to me?"
Do you think he was just waiting to see you finding your feet? What do you think? What was...
Well, that technology was like revolutionary, especially up here in the Marcellus, because it was hard to develop. So that edge was really important.
Yeah, like hydraulic fracturing. I mean, for people that aren't familiar with it's been something that's been done for a long time. I'd say the year 2000 was where people started realizing this could be pretty transformative. But from 2000 to 2006, it was a lot of people figuring out how to leverage the tech. So that was the new piece of technology that we were really getting familiar with. But he says, "Yeah, I want to start an oil and gas company." And I said, "Well, Dad, let's step back and I know hydraulic fracturing. Oil and gas finance, because my father was a hedge fund manager. And he invested in energy." I said, "But there's like other skills that we probably need if we want to start an oil and gas company, like." So I made a list. I said, "Dad, here's the things I think we need to start to be successful in oil and gas. Like, do you know anything about?" I said, "I checked off hydraulic fracturing. You check off finance." It's like, "Do you know anything about land?" He says, "Nope." I said, "Do you know anything about drilling?" He says, "Nope." "Production?" "Nope." "Midstream?" "Nope." "Reserves?" "Nope." I said, "Okay, that makes two of us, but let's go ahead and try this anyway." So I think, for me, there's
what you're telling us is you've never been risk adverse, have you, Toby?
Well, yeah. I think the takeaways from that is two things. One, to start a business, I think you need two things. I think you need to have an edge, a reason that shows that you can do something better than anybody else, because there's nothing in this world that's not going to have incredible competition. So you need an edge. But the other thing is you need to have an opportunity to play that edge. And that's really what's special that we had, that we are incredibly grateful for, is it's a unique thing to get that opportunity. And so for me, like when we think about like success, it's a lot of the way we think about success is, not what you accomplish, but what you accomplish with your ability. And because we had this really amazing opportunity, me and my brothers were like, we cannot waste this. We have got to really max this out and realize the full potential.
So was your ignorance to certain parts of the industry an advantage in some points, because you weren't like making the same decisions as everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly felt like a disadvantage at the time.
Yeah.
But the reality is shale was such a transformative thing, and this was the first energy transition that took place in this country. Mm-hmm. And so you could make the argument that not having classic oil and gas conventional experience forced us to look at the world fresh, and
Absolutely.
shale was a fresh look. And so we were able to do some things that I think gave us an advantage. Like, one of the crazy things is, conventionally people talk about what does the well produce? Well, we're talking about horizontal drilling. It's not just appropriate to say what does a well produce. I mean, it's for us. What did we do? We normalized it. We normalized production on a per 1,000 foot basis. Now, that sounds so basic because that's what everybody does today. But back then, guess what? That was the night vision for us that allowed us to see some bright spots faster than others, and that's an example of how we were able to, guide the position in the prospecting to secure the right position. But that's sort of how it happened. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity, and from that, because we didn't know the business, our entry was to start as a non-op player, and I figured my dad had connection to the industry. He knew the CEOs, but he didn't know anybody that's actually putting the deals together. So we got our first deal at NAPE.
Okay, yeah.
Which probably not the best place to source deals. But my attitude back then was, we're young. I was 24, 25 years old.
That's just crazy.
You can afford, the saying, you're young, you can afford to take big risk. And that's the type of drilling we were doing. I mean, we were doing the wildcat stuff, the 1 out of 10 chance, and sounded exciting. And then after the 5th dry hole, and we had pretty much blown the entire budget, and I realized it's probably not a good idea. And what people don't realize is, like, we were down to our last well, and this was a deep Ellenberger test in West Texas. It was 13,000 foot hole, and the play was drill a deep well, put an ESP, an electric submersible pump, and pump 2,000 barrels of fluid out, hope for a 10% oil cut, and that's a 200 barrel a day well. And so when we did that, now this is our last well, and I'm like, man, I just blew everything my dad had earned his whole life and put into this. We got down to formation.
Which I can't imagine that pressure. It's not like even a bank. It's, you know what I mean? It's seriously personal at that point.
Oh, it was, I mean, every day for like a full, like for that 18 months, it was like going to sleep sick to my stomach. Yeah. It was painful. And we got the well drilled, and we started doing the test, and they start swabbing it, and said, Toby, got the first cup. And now I'm hoping for 10% oil cut. Guy calls me up, says, Toby, the cut's 75%.
Oh my God, I just got chills.
And I'm like, man, I dropped to my knees like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, oh, thank God. The guy says, I'll call you back in another hour with an update. I said, what do you mean update? Like, that's it. It's 75% oil cut. He says, no, we got to do this again and see if it stabilizes. I'm like, what? Oh. So he called me back. Next update, 60% oil cut. Next update, 40%, 20%, 10%, 0.
Oh, no.
Busted. So what do?
Give up.
Never give up. We had enough money to plug the well.
Okay.
But I looked at the logs again, and we had about $400,000 left. And so I was looking at this log. We had drilled a 13,000 foot test. You go out there, you're like, man, there's pump jacks everywhere. There's oil in this whole area. Is there anything that we could any other zone that we could figure out? And so I looked and saw that around 8,000 feet, there was a bunch of, small pay zones, like maybe 1 foot oil sands. And that's nothing you would ever complete on its own. But I realized over this 1,000 foot section, there was maybe 100 of those all separated. And the question was, well, if we put a big enough frac on there that's designed to connect up all these zones over a big area, if we design this right, maybe we can connect up all those, 60 foot 61-foot stringers and have them turn into like a 60-foot reservoir. That is something you complete. So, I mean, that was our Hail Mary. And we put the frac on and discovered 1 million barrels of oil. And
Wow.
that was the breakout. And that was the end of Tobe's wildcatting days. So at that point, I realized I'm young. I could afford to take my time and play our strengths. And that's where we decided to get into shale. And that's where we decided to come up here to Pennsylvania.
Well, that's such a common story throughout the history of our industry, right? Like the Spindletop guy, Spindletop. So that's where the Texas oil was discovered. It was a one-armed mechanic. He was like this, he wasn't even a geologist. He just read a couple geology books, and he was trying to convince all these people to drill, and they were within feet, and they were about to give up, and they just did a couple more feet, and it just exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like a days-long oil explosion. But it's funny how history is still continuing to repeat itself with people like you, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I say, like, I don't think anybody's more grateful for where we're at than the Rice brothers, because we were literally on the edge, and that one.
I'm sure your dad's pretty
grateful.
grateful too, to be honest. Come on.
No, he's grateful too. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, we're incredibly grateful on the opportunity that we have today, and we try and make the most of it every single day.
How was that conversation letting your dad know?
On that we weren't gonna go bankrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good call. He was happy to hear that we didn't blow his entire life savings on in 18 months. So yeah, he was happy about that.
Was he worried? Before?
Yeah, I mean, of course he was. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big deal. But I realized my dad, I think one of the issues we had was I thought that he was the conservative one. So when we're walking around NAPE looking at these deals, he's looking at something like, he's experienced and he likes this deal. It seems risky, but he's an experienced guy and he knows what he's doing. So let's do it. And I think he was looking at me and saying, Tobe's a petroleum engineer. He'll be able to evaluate the risk. And so now it was just like both of us really didn't have a handle. And I realized my dad is he has a high tolerance for risk. And I think that's one of the things that's a difference maker in this business, in the past at least. It's like, get the information, and then you can have all the great information in the world, but if you don't act, what's the point? And so my father had the ability to pull the trigger, and that's something that we had to do multiple times during our start at Rice Energy. And the bets only gets harder, because what you're playing with, if you're successful, only gets bigger and bigger.
Sure.
But the other thing is we had to flip that coin. Heads, if this plays, heads you win, tails you're out. We flipped that coin 4 times during our time at Rice Energy. Now, we were doing this with our money. Once we became a public company, obviously it was a much more measured, methodical approach. But again, yeah, it wasn't just that first wildcat that kicked it off. It was multiple other times we had to make that bet. But I think ultimately knowing when to pull the trigger is a defining characteristic, and I think a big reason for success. But
is that addictive to like take those risks and see if you're going to be successful or not?
But surely you've become more educated and calculated just from your experiences, Toby, right?
Yeah,
Do you feel that you have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a different game now. There's so much information out there that you're, I mean, and be honest, like, running a public company, it's about predicting your performance and actually delivering results. So it's not that, private company startup type mentality where you probably are going to be in a situation where you have to do things like that.
Yeah.
We've gotten past that, but when we sold Rice Energy, people are like, oh, Toby, you're going to go do that? You're going to go start up another company again? And I looked at my brother, Derek, and I was like, Derek, what's your appetite? Because I know how I feel. He says, absolutely no way. Because
stressful.
It's like high school. Like when I think about high school, like I remember the good times, but if I really think about it, I hated high school. Like it was so awkward, uncomfortable. Yeah. And I think a lot of like the same thing applies to like the startup. It's an absolute grind. Every single thing is make or break. And it's just a lot of stress, a lot of work. And so it wasn't as fun as what most people think, but I don't think you can really appreciate that unless you've gone through that.
Yeah.
So when we came up here to play shale, this is 2006, 2007. Like the Marcellus, I think, when did Range drill their first well? Like 2005.
Round about then.
So everything was like, it was something that the play at that point was something that could have been something, but not everybody really knew was good. So I figured, man, Appalachia's 16 million acres of potential size. We can't afford to compete in the Barnett. I can't afford to compete in the Haynesville because there's just a bunch of gunslingers down there. And I think that, part of being successful in life is positioning yourself to be successful.
Sure.
And that means sometimes not being where everybody else is. So that put us in the Marcellus, and the attitude was, well, even if we just get a couple thousand acres, that's enough for us to drill some wells, and that'll be a good start. So we didn't really know where the core was going to be. So the approach was to pick up separate pods of acreage across the entire trend. So we had a little 2,000 acre block in Lycoming, in Clinton, Clearfield, like the central part, all the way down to Fayette, Westmoreland. And the play was to get these blocks and then watch the drilling results and activity and sort of highlight what would be a good area. And hopefully we'd have a pod that was close there. And so I leased all the land. I exhausted the land budget.
Didn't you have like a handshake deal with some guy who's going to pay somebody else way more money?
Yeah. So, well, that's coming.
Oh.
So we had all we had all of our money on the table. We saved enough money to drill one well.
Oh my God.
And so I'm just waiting for Derek, our geologist, to do his assessment and figure out what was the pod that we were going to actually develop, what worked. I got the call, and Derek said, "Tobe, I figured out where the core is." I said, "Great." I said, "Derek, how many acres do we have in the core? I mean, tell me." He says, "Tobe, hold on, let me get out a piece of paper and let me add it up." I said, "Oh, he's got to add it up? This is good news. This is great news. He's got to add it up." He says, "All right, Tobe, I'm done adding it up. 0 acres. I'm like, "What?" And it was, dude, I'm telling you, it was just like that same feeling where that guy came back and told me, 0%
Yeah.
oil cut. Heart sinks into your stomach. And I said, "Well, no acres are good." He's like, "No, it's not the core. You missed it." I said, "Damn it." But he said, we do see a bright spot in Washington County. And, so we were able to trade and sell some of our acreage, and I was able to get connected through the network on an 800 acre lease. And up here, 800 acres is massive.
Yeah.
I mean, the parcels that we're signing right now are like, at EQT, for perspective, we did 8,000 deals last year, and to pick up 16,000 acres.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about less than two acres of parcel size. So 800 acres was huge, and so that was able to pick up that lease, and but that one it was crazy because I was able to call this guy, and he was, the only reason he was available is because he didn't want to work with a big company, and so we told him that to work with us. And the reason why he did is because we said we're going to be a great partner, and so I offered this guy at the time, it was like $500 an acre, and
What was the going rate, out of curiosity? Can you remember what would the big guys have been offering at that point?
yeah, after the handshake,
Yeah.
he's like, "That's good, and you can participate with us." I sent the paperwork over and called him. "Is everything good? Ready to sign?" He says, "Tobe, everything's good, but there's one problem. I just got a call from Range Resources 30 minutes ago, and they offered me $2,000 an acre." So again, like, that's another heartbreaker. I said, well, X, his name was Dennis Alexander. I said, "X, what are you going to do?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to do," like, we shook hands. He said, I'm going to do what I said I was going to do because I believe you're going to do what you said you're going to do. And what we told him we would do is be a great partner. Without that, that was another like defining moment in our journey, was Dennis Alexander taking a chance on us. And ever since then, when Dennis would ask for something, we'd stop what we did and we'd take care of it. Anytime we had any questions, we would answer them.
Is he still around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we ended up that like mentality of taking care of our partners really culminated. I think one of our most defining characteristics as a company is our teamwork. And teamwork isn't just working well with our employees. Teamwork is treating all of our stakeholders like part of the team. But it started there, and it eventually, Dennis Alexander made way more than $2,000 an acre because he was able to participate with us.
Yeah, he had faith.
That's not surprising at all, though, because you are so personable and human. Like you are the king in the oil field, but you still like have conversations and corn dogs like with your employees. It's.
I don't eat corn dogs.
You don't eat corn dogs?
No.
Well, that's just what I picture. Whatever, steak.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like that doesn't surprise me at all.
Down to
that
earth.
you shook your yes.
There you go.
Yeah, you gotta stay humble.
So you touched on those values. Can you tell us a little bit about the values that are kind of the core of what make up EQT?
Yeah. So number one value is trust, and that's incredibly important. That to us, the behaviors is simply doing what you say you're going to do and doing the right thing always.
That's how you got that 800 acres.
Yeah, that's right. And you can understand how incredibly important that is. Trust is one of the reasons why we want to have the safest work environment as possible, because people are trusting us when they come on our location, that we're going to take care of them. So it's like the number one value is trust. Second one is teamwork. Putting others' needs in front of your own. The third value we have is heart. This is when we put this out at EQT. A lot of people gave me grief. They said, "Tob, heart, like there's no other company has the value of heart." I said, "Well, listen, it's important to me. This is about bringing passion to what you do every day. I don't care what you do in the organization, but like care about what you do, care about the actions you take and the relationships you make." And heart is actually like the engine for us to do more in trust, do more in teamwork, and do more on our last value, which is evolution. And evolution is just, knowing that we've done a great job, but we can do something better tomorrow.
Like the gorilla.
Yeah, like the gorilla. That's the spirit animal.
You know what I love is hearing those values again, but having heard the 800-acre story, having heard your efforts in baseball, having heard how close you came to breaking. I think
sense.
they make much more sense.
Why you
having
are
heard
where
those
you are
stories
now.
From
and
you.
that's what
because you can actually see where they actually came from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that people get to hear it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And so our last value is evolution. And for us, people like, how the hell do you exhibit the behavior of evolution? For us, it starts with transparency. And that's something that we bring to the organization with our digital work environment. People are emailing me. I'm typically not responding to emails internally. Everything's done in our sort of Facebook for work type environment. But transparency is when people can see what everybody's doing. Transparency leads to collaboration. People start talking, and then guess what happens? People start collaborating. They start having ideas, and that's innovation. But innovation is not good enough. I mean, you need to make sure the ideas we have are actually designed to improve what we're doing in the environment that we're in. And, being able to smash the bad ideas on the floor and screw in the right ones that actually help you succeed in the environment you're in, that's evolution. And so innovation is not enough. It needs to be evolution, which is applying to the environment. And you think about but it all starts with transparency.
So instead of having like lines of communication, you have pools of communication, which that's kind of what evolution is, right? If you have a lot of different differences, then, our gene pool, the more data you have, the more you can weed out the bad data.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you that the craziest thing is because we started this business in an apartment in Pittsburgh, and we've grown that to fast forward 10 years later at Rice Energy, we grew to a top 10 producer of natural gas in the country. We had 2 public companies. We were running billion-dollar budgets and had hundreds of employees. I think we had about 600 employees at the end. We've seen like the evolution of a business from the beginning to and now EQT. But like something like changes, like the way you run your business has got to change. And I think a lot of things that change. I mean, typically what you see is, bigger companies, the bigger the company is, typically they're run less efficiently. I don't know if you guys notice that as you're talking to your contacts. Seems like at these big companies, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And, for me, when we got to about 130 employees, that's when I realized like some really simple communication bust started happening. Like the people that you hired are now hiring people, and those people are hiring people. You have to completely change the way you run your business. And for me, it's been, a big push on the technology. It's been a big push on the culture and our values. It's been a big push on making sure everybody understands the mission and is aligned to that. Culture's been really important, but at the end, we were able to create a company that, Rice Energy, outperformed our peers by 90% during our time as a public company. We were voted top workplace in Pittsburgh, which we're equally proud about. We built a great culture. But simply put, I think the most remarkable thing and the hardest thing for why we were selling is we were a company that was getting better as we were getting bigger. And
which is rare.
Yeah, and I understand why that was, because it's the culture, but what's really remarkable is when we sold Rice Energy.
You broke a lot of hearts. You know that, right?
It broke my heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the right thing to do. It was the right thing for our shareholders. But yeah, it was incredibly tough. I mean, can you imagine, putting everything you have for 10 years?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll never forget it. I mean, I'll never forget when we had to do it. We talked to everybody at South Point. And everybody was crying and there's tears.
I know. I had phone calls right after. It was really emotional, even for not being
Everyone
there.
loved Rice Energy.
Yeah, they
it
did.
was the culture,
Seriously, it
the
rippled through the
superheroes
industry
that you had everywhere.
It was crazy.
It was
Never has there been another company that has gone through something like that I think sent ripples through the industry like that did. Do you know what I mean? We all felt it.
Yeah.
All the subsidies of it felt it. It was crazy.
That was incredibly hard. It was the right thing to do. But yeah, I mean, that's like one of the really tough leadership things is doing the right thing when it's going to be hard. And I don't think there was anything harder than doing that. But when it comes to trust and doing the right thing always, that was the thing that happened. And as cool as Rice Energy was, I'm going to tell you right now, EQT is like Rice Energy on steroids.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We've got more tech. We've got more people, more intelligent, bright people. The engagement's through the roof. It's a really exciting place, and we've got a really amazing, a bigger platform to make an even bigger impact on the world.
Sure.
So it's a really incredible place.
So how was your time being away from EQT, or from Rice, like after you left Rice and before you came back to EQT? So a lot of successful people, they leave their company. A lot of them get kicked out, like Steve Jobs. He got kicked out, and then he came back, and he just murdered it. He killed it. But it was stressful for him when he left. So how was that for you, like leaving and then everyone asking you to come back?
They started asking on day one, though, so it's not like...
Well, so for us, when we started Rice Energy, the higher purpose back then was to help bring energy independence to America. That was our higher purpose. Fast forward, America found their energy independence, mission accomplished, sold to EQT. Really thought we were setting them up to knock it out of the park. So I had some time to step back and think about what's next in life for me. I think I was 35, 36 years old. Grateful for the fact that, money was not a driving motivator for me. And what I wanted to do next was make an impact. And there's a lot of different ways. I spent that year figuring out what's the best way how can you make the most impact in this world? And you can do things like public service. You can get into charity work. You can do podcasts and teach people things, make an impact that way.
Yes.
There you go.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, by the way.
So I almost started a podcast, but then I saw this one thing, and it was absolutely remarkable. And it was a correlation between human quality of life and energy consumption. And the data is really clear. The more energy people use, the better the quality of life. More energy people use, the longer they live. And that was it. It was like, so if you want to make an impact in this world, find a way to bring more energy into it.
So that's what's driving you right now. It's not like the success or the money or anything. You really want to make an impact on this world. And most people don't understand the gravity of our situation of not being able to share this wonderful gift that we have,
Yeah, but it's not just about the higher purpose, which is to provide energy security for the world. In order to do this, this is a business. In order to enable your ability to achieve your higher purpose, you got to be profitable. And so, we're motivated by profits because profits will enable us to achieve our higher purpose.
You can't do anything without money. Yeah.
So when about a year after we sold the deal is when I read the news and saw that EQT was having some major issues, and they had a big operational miss, which was surprising to us and the Rice family. We were big investors. Other investors called us and said, "Hey, what's going on here? Can you tell us how this needs to be fixed?" And so shareholders asked me to get involved. I went to the company and asked them if they
Did you have any doubts, or did you know? Did it take you a long time to kind of make that decision personally, or is it just something you knew in your heart that you wanted to do?
Well, I think we had to do it, but I did not want. That was not my preferred path to go down.
Sure.
What ultimately happened, doing the proxy contest. I went to the company and said, "Hey guys, I think you got some problems. I think I can help you, operationally in communication and tech." And they said, "All right, and I remember talking to the chairman. He says, "Tobe, do you want to be CEO?" I said, "No, I don't want to be CEO. I just want to help fix this business, please." So because we slept in trucks for 10 years. My brother Derek was in a trailer, snow coming in the roof. Yeah, I mean, this is what we sacrificed a lot
To watch
to
it.
have this interest in this business, and to see it just get destroyed. Not for reasons that are external factors, but because people aren't paying attention.
Controllable things.
Yeah,
right?
before you buy back $500 million worth of stock, check to make sure that your operations are on check. That was the biggest thing for me, was they bought back $500 million worth of stock, and then 3 months later announced a $300 million operational miss. So clearly there's a big disconnect.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the reason why companies, I think, get worse off is it all comes down to communication.
Right.
And that's really what needs to change as you get bigger, is the way that you communicate. So when I was meeting with him, I was like, "Hey, I can help." He's like, it's like, "I don't need to be CEO. I just want to help you guys." So I had a meeting with their CEO, and I was like, "This is great," because when we sold the business to EQT, we had this individual come in, and I was able to say, "Hey, I think we're doing some pretty cool things here. I think it'd be helpful for you." And he looked at that and said, "Man, we should do a reverse integration into the Rice system." I said, "Awesome." Well, that never happened. And now I'm with this guy talking about how to fix the massive problem that he had in his hand. But I was like, this person has seen what we can do and is really supportive. Now he's in a position to actually pull the trigger and make it happen. And we're talking, and I was like, this is going to happen. This is going to be easy. I'm not going to have to do anything I'm not going to have to do the guerrilla stuff. And I was like, I need tech, I need ops, and I want HR too, because the culture is the most important thing to me. And he says, "Tobe, this is going to work." I said, "Great." He says, but then he said something, and he says, "But when the employees find out you're coming back, they're not exactly going to give you a bear hug."
What?
Well, they got rid of a lot of the Rice people, so there's a lot of EQT people. So, but I was like, boom, there it is. He knows it's the right thing, but he knows it's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. Let's see if he's a leader. Let's see if he'll pull the trigger and do what's right when he knows it's going to be tough. Never got the call back. And so we had to do that proxy contest. And that was pretty grueling. That was, I think the brothers, we've done some pretty cool things. And I think we looked at this as this is going to be another deal. But it was not another deal. I mean, the personal attacks, it was like
we were on pins and needles watching the entire thing, just waiting.
Yeah. It was a pretty neat experience. But ultimately after that whole thing, when the shareholders, voted, 80% of the votes came our way, and we weren't just asking for a board seat. I mean, this is a 12-person board. We took 7 out of the 12 board seats for majority control. People freak out when somebody gets one board seat. We took out majority control. But, 80% of the shareholders voted for this, which is a landslide. And you think I'd be excited about it, but I was pissed. I was like, why the hell did I have to get dragged through the mud for 9 months to have this landslide? I mean, I was
when
happy.
It's clearly what the majority wanted.
Yeah. So, so we were able to get in there and we were able to start making major progress on bringing more energy into this world, making an impact. We made our energy cheaper, more reliable, cleaner. We were able to pull over $700 million of annualized costs out of the business. We were able to, when you lower your cost structure, all of that fringe acreage now makes sense. And so we were able to increase the inventory that we had, and that has allowed us to increase the amount of years of inventory we have, and that makes our energy that we produce more reliable. And from a cleaner perspective, we're set up to be, net zero in a couple of years, which I'm more than happy to dive into the details. But, everything was good, and we're bringing more energy to this world, but something was stopping us. And what was preventing us from making a bigger impact on the world was these pipeline cancellations. And when you look at this and you see, why are these people canceling these pipelines? It's because they're scared. They're scared of climate. And so, we never wanted to try and take the argument and convince people that they shouldn't be scared about this. Reality is, people are freaked out about this stuff. So we stepped back and we said, well, what can we do to be a part of the solution? And that's where we came up with a really amazing solution, which is going to be probably one of the most impactful things that I think that we'll ever do in our careers. It's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, and it's going to be unleashing American energy, specifically unleashing U.S. LNG. It's a really amazing opportunity. That's going to be a great solution, and that's where we spent a lot of time this last year is talking about that, and would be happy to provide some more comments on that.
Yeah, we're going to do that in episode 2.
Yes,
Good.
episode 2. I have a question. Why didn't you want to be CEO? Why didn't you want to come back and be CEO?
Well, because it wasn't about that. It was about fixing the business. Now, that was a blessing in disguise. Because I think now, like, had I gone into the organization not as the CEO, it would have made it very difficult for us to make the types of changes that we made. And we made some pretty amazing changes, and it's all outlined in the proxy contest. A very detailed plan we put out, and the most important thing was getting the Shellenials back. And so we had a dozen of what I think is some of the most qualified people in the country to run shale, and they all came back.
Shellenials.
To bring them back in there. You think about like what we did. From an organizational perspective, the change was just remarkable. At the board level, you had brand new board. At the executive level,
so much change. It was so much change all at one time.
Yeah,
and it worked.
Yeah, we replaced every executive.
Yeah,
that wasn't the plan. We replaced every executive, and then we organized the company into 15 departments, and we brought in all new department heads. Now that's the most senior people in the company, and then underneath that we have about 90 different. The departments are broken down into about 90 different sub-departments. Those are like individual teams. And really didn't make that many changes there. Maybe it brought in a dozen. But when you think about a complete overhaul from the board down to the department heads. But the coolest thing about EQT is while we changed leadership out, this team right now, the workforce, the crew, it's the same people before. And they're the ones that are doing it now. And I'm like super pumped to tell people like this is the same team. It's just a little bit, we changed a little bit with leadership. And what that tells you is like these
leaders.
These people were always rock stars.
The talent was always there.
Yeah.
But they were just misguided.
Yeah. And that was our initial mission at EQT. It was realize the full potential of EQT. And that meant, full potential of the assets. If we have great we need to be able to drill great wells, hit our type curves, and really realize the full potential of our people. And, one of the reasons why I say this is like Rice Energy on steroids is like, it's the crew. They've really done an amazing job. And listen, they put a lot of trust in what we're doing because the way that we work is not your conventional way of working.
But it's obviously working, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the culture and understanding the human behavior. Like you talk about turning intangibles into tangibles.
Yeah.
Like everything that you do. And I think that that's something that engineers often mistake. Like they always look at the numbers, but really there's like a deep lying cultural behavioral thing that transferred to numbers and profits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Culture for us, that's definitely, I think, probably one of the most differentiating things about any business. If you say what makes an oil and gas company special, if I told you that, hey, we've got world-class assets, guess what? Look around here. Other people are drilling in the same areas that we are. Now maybe they don't have as big of an inventory, so that's differentiated. But the differentiator is your culture. And for us, we spend a lot of time thinking about like how to make an intangible thing like culture tangible. And for us, it's really simple. Culture is what we do, how we do it, and who's doing it. And we're very intentional about describing that to employees, starting with what we do. We need to make sure our culture is aligned with the type of business we are. So like for us and the things, what we do a very aggressive mission alignment exercise, which starts with mine. And that rolls down through the department heads, through their teams, and filters down. And making sure people are focused on what they're working on is incredibly important. We spend a lot of time on the alignment. The other thing we do is we focus on performance. So we have a really robust performance management system. That's one of the apps that we built during COVID. We built this before we cut everybody from work from home, just to have even greater awareness on the performance that people are doing as we're going to be remote. So we have over 3,000 different metrics that we track at EQT.
I love that too, because that's objective instead of subjective. So you can quantify how much somebody works, and then you don't have to worry about if my boss likes me or not. Like, you're winning. If you're winning, then you should be excelling, and you can quantify it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what heart is about, is winning. And
yeah.
Right.
So now you've said what you're going to do. You've said like what good looks like. Like, that's incredibly important. But like how you do it. This is about our values, trust, teamwork, heart, and evolution. It's also about the way that we work digitally. It's about the applications that we use. It's about the business processes we run, the analytics that we use, and also the interactions that we take between ourselves to get work done. We define that as the way we work, and we spend a lot of time. That's the 800 apps that we've developed, the analytics that we put on the system. How like the focus program, our commitment to safety, how we work, ESG and specifically safety is the most important thing. So we lay out, we have 12 different programs that define how we work. And then the last thing is the people is the who. And this is really important for us on the who. We want to make sure that we have, at the end of it, we want to make sure people are happy, because if people are happy, guess what? They're engaged. And engaged employees will take care of the details.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at our company at EQT, being large scale, every penny that we can generate in margin translates to $20 million of free cash flow. So that's the coolest thing about working at EQT is, every penny is worth $20 million. Now, the trick is to make sure that you don't get buried in the weeds, and you're still able to balance that with high level thinking. So, we are constantly fighting for that strive, and that's our job as leaders, to make sure people have their heads up, but we're still able to take care of the details. But that's the benefit of that. That's the value proposition for our shareholders and for our stakeholders is, engaged employees will create more value.
Absolutely.
And that was proven at Rice Energy. It's being proven again now. And for us to drive engagement, there's really a few things that we focus on with our employees. Number one, we want to make sure that they're productive. And that starts with the mission alignment, making sure they have the way that we work.
People want to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if employees are productive, they're challenged. Like, how about flipping around a 100-year-old company and doing it in less than 6 months? That's a challenge. We've constantly finding ways to challenge the employees. Like, hey, if we're going to do net zero, instead of doing it by 2040, let's do it, instead of doing it in 30 years, let's do it in 30 months. Pneumatic device program.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So we constantly look for ways to challenge our employees. Equally important, you need to recognize talent and recognize the wins. Well, with a great performance management system, every time people are logging wins, we can celebrate that. We always look for ways to recognize. And the last part is having fun. And while that, people think like that's pinball machines and parties and stuff. That's not what it's about for us. When we took over at EQT, the thing that we focused on, like having fun, it was going to be winning. And there's nothing more fun than winning, and nothing builds culture like winning.
So I'm like one of the most competitive people on the planet. Actually, we played a game last night in an event, and I fell, but I kicked her ass. But
she actually did not. We were very close, but it was funny.
I won.
What were you playing?
We had to do a challenge we're bringing that Social Octane golf games up from Houston. This is the first time it's going to be in the area. and they made us compete against each other as well as other people for a free team. But the funny part is that we kicked the guys' butts more than anything else, because they took 15 minutes to get a single basket. I think we got it first time. Second time on the cornhole board, Sarah bit the dust, hit the floor, and then did the flip cup. She did win. Barely.
But
barely.
Speaking of being competitive, I think that would be so appealing as an employee for any company to just be able to watch your metrics and see if you're, doing better than the next person and winning, and just constantly looking at that. And then that's
Challenge
like a
yourself.
sense of accountability to make yourself to keep improving and evolving like a gorilla.
I am so glad that we've had this opportunity to kind of talk in depth about yourself, Toby, and Rice and EQT, and your journey to get kind of where we are. I know that, I've been in the industry for 16 years now, and I've been around you guys the majority of that time, but I definitely have a completely new appreciation and perspective of the values for the company, just you and how we kind of got to this point. And you're very vocal in regards to our industry, but this is part of the story I don't know if everybody has heard in its entirety, at least for a long time.
And Jen, we're just getting started. That's the cool part.
Yeah. And this has been another episode of Energy First with Sarah and Jen. I am Jennifer McIntyre.
Sarah Phillips.
Thank you.